The day my grandfather died, my entire family smiled too much, and that's how I knew something was terribly wrong. My name is Claire Whitmore, and for most of my life, I believed I was invisible in my own family. I was the quiet granddaughter, the one who showed up early, stayed late, cleaned the kitchen after holidays, and never asked for anything in return. I was raised to believe that loyalty was love, that patience was virtue, and that family, no matter how flawed, was sacred. I believed that right up until the moment I realized they had been planning to erase me long before my grandfather ever took his last breath. My grandfather, Henry Whitmore, was the backbone of our family. He built everything we had from nothing: land, property, savings, legacy. When my parents died in a car accident when I was 17, he took me in without hesitation. He never spoke much about love, but he showed it in quiet ways, making sure my tuition was paid, leaving notes on the kitchen counter, sitting beside me in silence when grief felt too heavy to name. He was the only person in that family who ever truly saw me. So when the lawyer called and said the will would be read the following Monday, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't greedy. I wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. I just assumed fairness. That was my first mistake. The reading took place in my Aunt Margaret's living room, the same room where I had been scolded as a child for sitting too casually, the same couch where cousins whispered about me as if I were a charity case instead of blood. My aunt sat upright, dressed in black silk, eyes already shining with victory. My uncle Robert leaned back like a man who knew the ending of the story before it was told. And my cousin Emily, sweet smiling Emily, wouldn't meet my eyes at all. The lawyer cleared his throat and began. At first, everything sounded normal. Donations to charities. A few sentimental items. Then the real assets started appearing. The lake house. The farmland. The main estate. Piece by piece, name by name, everything my grandfather had worked his entire life to build was being distributed, and my name never came up. I sat there, hands folded, heartbeat steady, waiting for my turn. Surely I was mentioned later. Surely there was a reason for the pause. Then the lawyer closed the folder. That concludes the will. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt something crack inside me, but before I could speak, my aunt let out a slow, satisfied breath. Well, she said softly, that's settled. I asked the lawyer if there had been a mistake. He looked at me with pity. You were not named as a beneficiary. That was the moment the room changed. No sympathy. No confusion. Just relief, thinly disguised as politeness. My cousin finally looked at me then, and the guilt in her eyes lasted exactly half a second before disappearing. I stood up, my legs shaking. My grandfather raised me, I said. I was with him until the end. My uncle shrugged. That doesn't entitle you to anything. I left without another word, humiliation burning hotter than grief. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that 3 days earlier, my grandfather had pressed a sealed envelope into my hand and whispered, "Do not open this until after they show you who they really are." I hadn't opened it yet. And as I stood alone in my car outside my aunt's house, surrounded by laughter that wasn't meant for me, I finally realized the truth. The will they heard wasn't the whole story. And what was inside that envelope would change everything. But before I could even turn the key in the ignition, my phone rang, and when I saw who was calling, I knew my family's betrayal had only just begun. That I didn't answer the phone at first. I just stared at the screen, my Aunt Margaret's name glowing like a warning sign I'd ignored my entire life. She had never called me directly before. Messages were usually delivered through someone else, filtered, softened, stripped of responsibility. But this time, she wanted my voice. That alone told me the envelope in my purse wasn't the only thing she was afraid of. When I finally answered, her tone was warm, too warm. "Claire, sweetheart," she said, dragging the word out as if we were suddenly close, "I was worried about you. You left so abruptly. I think you know why," I replied, keeping my voice steady even as my hands trembled. A pause. Then a sigh, perfectly practiced. These things are hard. Your grandfather made his choices. It's best not to dwell on what can't be changed. That's when I knew. She wasn't calling to comfort me. She was calling to make sure I stayed quiet. I'm not dwelling, I said. I'm trying to understand. Another pause, shorter this time. Sharper. There's nothing to understand. The will was clear. I glanced down at my purse, at the slight bulge where the envelope rested, unopened but heavy with promise. Was it? Her breath caught. Just barely. But enough. Claire, she said carefully, you've had a difficult life. You're emotional right now. Grief does strange things to people. I'd hate for you to embarrass yourself by making accusations. There it was. The warning. I'm not accusing anyone, I said. Not yet. I hung up before she could respond, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure the entire street could hear it. I sat there for a long moment, staring through the windshield, watching my family celebrate inside the house that was never really mine. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. It was thick, sealed with my grandfather's familiar handwriting across the front. Claire. Only you. Inside was not a letter, but several documents folded neatly together. Legal documents. Deeds. Bank statements. And finally, a handwritten note in the same steady script I'd known since childhood. If you're reading this, then they showed you their true faces. I'm sorry you had to see it this way. My throat tightened as I read on. I changed my will 6 months ago. Quietly. I knew they'd contest it, so I prepared another path. The house on Willow Ridge is yours. So is the trust attached to it. They don't know about it yet. The house on Willow Ridge. My grandfather's favorite property. The one he never let anyone visit without him. The one my aunt had tried and failed to convince him to sell. My hands shook as I scanned the rest of the documents. Everything was legitimate. Signed. Witnessed. Filed. He hadn't left me scraps. He had left me the one thing they all wanted most. That's when my phone rang again. This time, it was my cousin Emily. Her voice broke the moment I answered. Claire, please, she said. You can't do this. I frowned. Do what? Don't pretend, she whispered. Mom knows. She found the old tax records. She knows Grandpa moved something before he died. I felt the world tilt. They are saying you manipulated him, Emily continued, her voice trembling. They are saying you took advantage of him when he was sick. Lawyers are already being discussed. I closed my eyes, anger rising like a tide. And what do you think? Silence. That was answer enough. I loved him, I said quietly. Did any of you even sit with him at the end? Emily started to cry. Just. Please be careful. This family doesn't lose quietly. When the call ended, I realized something chilling. They didn't know exactly what had given me, but they knew enough to come after it. And me. I started the car, my decision made. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. If my grandfather had trusted me with his final move, I would honor it. But as I pulled onto the road, a black sedan slid in behind me, keeping pace no matter how fast or slow I drove. And in that moment, I understood one terrifying truth. They weren't just planning to take back the inheritance. They were preparing to destroy me before I could claim it.